One alien race dared to challenge the humans and paid the price. Part 1, First Contact. The Tekri Empire had expanded across 17 star systems before their long-range scouts discovered Earth. Admiral Park of the Imperial Reconnaissance Fleet studied the holographic display with growing interest. A Class 3 civilization at best, he remarked to his second-in-command. Resource-rich planet, minimal defensive capabilities. Captain Kim nodded in agreement. Standard subjugation protocol then? Indeed. The Emperor will be pleased with this acquisition. Within weeks, a Tekri diplomatic vessel entered Earth's orbit. Their ambassador, Lee, addressed the United Nations with sophisticated translation technology. His message seemed cordial, but contained a thinly veiled ultimatum: submit to Tekri authority or face extinction. Colonel Han J., head of Earth's newly formed Unified Defense Initiative, watched the broadcast with narrowed eyes. They think we're primitive, she told her assembled officers. That will be their first mistake. While world leaders pretended to negotiate terms of surrender, Colonel Han mobilized Earth's military forces in secret. The Tekri would learn soon enough what it meant to threaten humanity. Part 2, The Underestimation. The first Tekri assault force descended on Seoul with overwhelming confidence. Their tactical officer, Choi, had assured command that resistance would be minimal. He was catastrophically wrong. As Tekri dropships entered the atmosphere, they triggered a web of advanced defensive systems the aliens had failed to detect. Experimental electromagnetic cannons tore through hulls designed to withstand conventional weapons. Impossible! Choi screamed as his ship plummeted toward the ground. Their technology is decades behind ours. On the ground, Major Yoon directed the counterattack. Her infantry units carried prototype plasma rifles, technology that Earth scientists had developed in secret, anticipating eventual contact with hostile aliens. They expected us to cower, she reported to Colonel Han. Instead, we've destroyed 60% of their landing force. The Tekri Supreme Commander, Kohn, received this news with cold fury. A minor setback, he declared. Humans are clever animals, nothing more. Meanwhile, Dr. Bei, captured during the initial assault, studied his alien prison with methodical interest. The Tekri had no idea that their captive was Earth's leading xenotechnologist. Part 3, The Human Counterattack. Dr. Bei's escape was meticulously planned. The Tekri believed he had simply found a flaw in their security systems. They never suspected he had been allowed to observe their technology before being extracted by a stealth team. Within days, Earth's defense labs had blueprints for Tekri shield generators and faster-than-light drives. Colonel Han assembled her strike team aboard the ESS Intrepid, Earth's first starship enhanced with reverse-engineered alien tech. Today we take the fight to them, she announced. They thought we would be easy prey. Let's show them the error of their judgment. The raid on the Tekri mothership left Admiral Park stunned. Somehow, these primitives had not only adapted Tekri technology but improved upon it. The human strike team moved with a ferocity and adaptability that baffled the rigid Tekri military doctrine. Their learning curve defies all models, reported the Admiral's chief scientist, Sung. We estimated decades for them to reach this level. The Admiral watched in disbelief as a human vessel, smaller than a Tekri cruiser, systematically disabled his flagship's weapons systems. Full retreat, he ordered. We need to reassess. Part 4, The Turning Point. Supreme Commander Khan faced the Emperor's holographic projection with uncharacteristic humility. The humans, they are unlike any species we have encountered. They adapt at an alarming rate. Excuses, the Emperor dismissed. Crush them with overwhelming force. But the Tekri military machine, accustomed to quick victories against inferior opponents, found itself outmaneuvered at every turn. Colonel Han's strategies proved unpredictable, combining centuries of human military doctrine with innovations no Tekri commander would have conceived. The decisive battle came at Proxima Centauri, where the Tekri had established their forward base. Major Yoon led the ground assault while Colonel Han coordinated from orbit. The humans fought with a determination that bordered on the suicidal, yet their apparent recklessness concealed brilliant tactical coordination. They're not just soldiers, Captain Kim observed as he watched human forces overwhelm his defensive line. Every one of them thinks like a commander. When the Tekri superweapon platform was captured intact, its self-destruct mechanisms disabled by Dr. Bay's countermeasures, the Empire's military advantage collapsed entirely. Part 5, The Reckoning. The Tekri delegation arrived at Earth's orbital diplomatic station with none of the arrogance that had characterized their first visit. Admiral Park, once the pride of the Imperial fleet, now served as a reluctant ambassador. Colonel Han, recently promoted to general, represented Earth's Unified Defense Council. Your unconditional surrender has been accepted, she informed the Tekri. Your colonial governors will withdraw from all subjugated worlds immediately. And if we refuse? Admiral Park asked, though he already knew the answer. Dr. Bay smiled thinly. We've transmitted the specifications for our new drive system to 17 of your former subject species. They're quite eager to settle old scores. As the Tekri Empire collapsed, humanity emerged as a stabilizing force in the sector. Under General Han's guidance, Earth established the Interstellar Cooperative, offering technological and humanitarian assistance to species long oppressed by the Tekri. Admiral Park, watching his once mighty empire dissolve, asked the general a final question before departing. How did you advance so quickly? What is your secret? General Han considered this for a moment before answering. Throughout our history, humans have always faced existential threats, mostly from each other. We've been preparing for this confrontation for thousands of years. You weren't our first challenge, Admiral. You were simply the first to come from the stars. The former admiral nodded slowly, finally understanding the fatal error of his people. They had threatened a species forged in the crucible of constant conflict, a species that had turned adaptation into an art form. The Tekri had dared to challenge humanity, and they had paid the ultimate price. The END ambassador Du Yun's patience had reached its limit. The humans had exhausted their 14-day grace period with endless questions and delays. Now, they dared to ask for more time. He stepped back from the diplomatic table and touched a communication device on his wrist. The negotiations have failed, he stated coldly. Commence the first phase of subjugation. Colonel Sunmi watched the ambassador's face harden. She knew what was coming next. Earth's intelligence networks had intercepted enough Tekri communications to understand their standard invasion protocol, a swift, overwhelming show of force targeting major population centers to break resistance quickly. But Earth was ready. High above the planet, 12 Tekri warships emerged from faster-than-light travel, their sleek hulls gleaming in the sunlight. General Taejun, supreme commander of the Tekri invasion force, surveyed the blue planet with satisfaction. A beautiful world, he remarked to his bridge crew. Soon to be another productive member of our empire. His second-in-command, Captain Jin Su, approached with a tactical display. Sir, we've identified their most significant military installations and government centers. Our first strike will disable their command structures and defense capabilities simultaneously. Excellent. Deploy the first wave. I want boots on the ground in their 7 largest cities within the hour. The Tekri were masters of rapid deployment. Their dropships, each carrying 100 elite soldiers, descended toward Earth's atmosphere in perfect formation. The invasion force had conquered dozens of worlds using these same tactics. The operation was expected to be routine. It was anything but. As the first dropships entered Earth's upper atmosphere, they triggered a web of previously undetected satellites. These weren't the primitive communication devices the Tekri had observed during their reconnaissance. These were weapons platforms that had been secretly deployed during the 14-day negotiation period. Unknown energy signatures detected, shouted a Tekri sensor operator. They're activating some kind of. The officer never finished his sentence. A network of experimental directed energy weapons fired simultaneously. Beams of concentrated electromagnetic energy sliced through the dropship's shields, which had been calibrated to withstand conventional weapons, not the specific frequencies Earth scientists had detected during the Tekri's demonstration in Australia. General Taejun watched in disbelief as 40% of his first wave disintegrated before reaching the lower atmosphere. Impossible, he roared. Their technology was assessed as pre-space age. Captain Jinsu frantically adjusted tactical displays. Sir, they concealed their true capabilities. Our intelligence was wrong. On Earth, Colonel Sunmi stood in the Global Defense Command Center, watching as humanity's carefully prepared trap was sprung. Military leaders from around the world had united under her coordination, pooling their most advanced technologies and setting aside centuries of rivalries to face the common threat. Second phase activated, announced her communications officer. The remaining Tekri dropships, having adjusted their shields, continued their descent toward major cities. They expected to encounter minimal resistance on the ground, perhaps some primitive ballistic weapons or basic explosives. Instead, they flew into a storm of advanced countermeasures. Quantum-locked targeting systems guided hypersonic missiles that phased through modified shields. Prototype railguns fired projectiles at velocities the Tekri had never encountered from a primitive species. In Seoul, Major Hyunwoo led a defense battalion equipped with exoskeletal combat suits that had been in experimental testing before the Tekri arrived. The aliens who landed expected easy targets. What they found were enhanced human soldiers who could match their strength and speed. A Tekri commander named Junho emerged from his damaged dropship, golden armor gleaming, energy weapon at the ready. He had conquered 3 worlds personally and expected this to be no different. Surrender immediately, he announced through his translation device. Resistance will only increase your suffering. Major Hyunwoo stepped forward, his exoskeleton humming with power. We don't surrender to invaders, he replied simply, before moving with augmented speed that caught the alien completely by surprise. Similar scenes played out across the planet. The Tekri had expected to face a disorganized, technologically inferior opponent. Instead, they encountered a unified defense featuring technologies humans had been developing for decades, technologies they had hidden from Tekri scans. Aboard his flagship, General Taejun received increasingly desperate reports from his ground forces. They have energy shields. Their weapons are penetrating our armor. Request immediate extraction from Beijing, we're surrounded. The general slammed his fist on the command console. How is this possible? They were supposed to be at least 2 centuries behind us technologically. Captain Jinsu reviewed the incoming data with growing alarm. Sir, it appears they deliberately concealed their capabilities. And these aren't technologies they received from other species, they developed them independently. No pre-space civilization develops particle beam weapons and phase-shifting missiles on their own, the general shouted. This one did, Jinsu replied quietly. And there's something else. Their tactics, they're unlike anything in our military database. They don't fight like the other species we've conquered. On the outskirts of Moscow, a Tekri strike team found itself caught in an elaborate ambush. Human forces didn't stand and fight in the open as expected. They used the urban environment with devastating effectiveness, appearing and disappearing, striking from unexpected angles. They fight like they've been at war their entire existence, reported the squad leader before his transmission went silent. In a sense, he was right. Throughout human history, warfare had driven innovation. Humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years, developing increasingly sophisticated ways to defeat enemies. The Tekri, who had enjoyed easy victories against less warlike species, had never encountered an opponent with such a deep cultural understanding of combat. By the end of the first day, the invasion was in chaos. More than 60% of the Tekri ground forces had been neutralized. The remainder were either in retreat or pinned down in defensive positions. In the underground command center, Colonel Sunmi received reports from around the world. Despite some losses, the defense was holding better than even she had hoped. The Cairo team has captured an intact Tekri dropship, reported her intelligence officer. Research teams are already taking it apart. Sunmi nodded with satisfaction. And the prisoner? Being transported to Facility Alpha. Dr. Huan is prepared to begin questioning as soon as he arrives. The prisoner was Sub-Commander Sung, one of the highest-ranking Tekri officers captured during the failed first wave. He had expected to be tortured or executed. Instead, he found himself in a sterile medical facility, facing a calm human scientist. Dr. Huan adjusted his glasses as he studied the alien. I want to understand your physiology, he explained. Not to harm you, but to ensure we can provide appropriate medical care. The Techri officer stared in confusion. You are at war with my people. Why would you care for my health? Because that's what separates us from conquerors, Dr. Huan replied simply. Now, let me explain how this situation looks from our perspective, and perhaps you can help me understand yours. As Sun Mi had predicted, the captured officer was more willing to share information when treated with unexpected dignity. Within hours, Dr. Huan had gained valuable insights into Techri biology, technology, and most importantly, the hierarchy of their empire. Back in orbit, General Taejun faced an impossible decision. The initial assault had failed catastrophically. Protocol dictated an immediate escalation to orbital bombardment, destroying major population centers from space to break the planet's will to resist. But something held him back. The humans had clearly anticipated their tactics. What other surprises might they have waiting? Sir, Captain Jinsu interrupted his thoughts, our long-range sensors are detecting unusual energy signatures from Earth's moon. The general frowned. Their moon is uninhabited. Apparently not, sir. We're detecting what appear to be launch facilities that weren't there during our initial survey. Before the general could respond, alarms blared across the bridge. From concealed bases on the lunar surface, Earth's final surprise revealed itself. Massive electromagnetic accelerators, railguns built in secret during the past decade, began firing projectiles toward the Techri fleet. The missiles were simple in design but devastating in their effectiveness, accelerated to speeds that gave the Techri defense systems minimal time to react. As his ship shuddered from a direct hit, General Taejun finally understood the magnitude of his error. The Techri had not merely underestimated human technology. They had underestimated human determination, adaptability, and willingness to fight. All ships, regroup at safe distance, he ordered. We need to reassess everything we thought we knew about this species. On Earth, Colonel Sun Mi watched as the Techri fleet retreated to the far side of the moon. She allowed herself a small smile of satisfaction, but knew this was just the beginning. The Techri would return with greater forces, better prepared for what they faced. But humanity would be ready. They had survived the first assault and captured precious alien technology in the process. Engineers worldwide were already analyzing Techri weapons and defenses, adapting human technology to counter them more effectively. The Techri had made a critical mistake. They had given humanity time to prepare, and humans had always been quick learners. In the 3 weeks following the failed Techri invasion, Earth transformed into a unified war machine. The attack had done what centuries of human conflict could not, it united the planet against a common enemy. Old rivalries were set aside as nations pooled their resources and shared their most secret technologies. Colonel Sun Mi stood in the center of the International Defense Command, a vast underground complex built beneath the Swiss Alps. Around her, screens displayed real-time updates from production facilities on 6 continents. Engineers worked day and night to integrate captured Techri technology with human innovations. Dr. Huan is here to see you, announced her aide. The scientist entered, looking tired but excited. Under his arm, he carried a secure tablet with his latest findings. Since capturing Sub-Commander Sung, Dr. Huan had been working closely with the Techri officer, who had gradually become more cooperative. We've made a breakthrough, Dr. Huan said without preamble. Sung has explained the fundamentals of their faster-than-light drive system. It's surprisingly similar to theories our physicists have been developing. Sun Mi's eyes widened. How long until we can build our own? That's the amazing part. With the components we salvaged from the captured dropships, we can modify our largest spacecraft within 2 months. General Taewon, who had been listening quietly, leaned forward. You're saying we could take the fight to them? Exactly, Dr. Huan nodded. And there's more. Sung has provided details about the Techri command structure and defensive systems. They're not as invulnerable as they want us to believe. For the first time since the invasion began, Sun Mi allowed herself to think beyond mere survival. The Techri had retreated to regroup, but Earth's intelligence suggested they were summoning a much larger force from their home territories. Humans needed to strike before that fleet arrived. "Show me everything," she said. Across the planet, preparations accelerated. In orbital shipyards that had previously built space stations, massive warships took shape. They looked crude compared to Tekri vessels, but appearances were deceiving. These ships combined the best of human ingenuity with reverse-engineered alien technology. 3 months later, 5 Earth ships were ready. They weren't pretty, their hulls were covered with additional armor plates and visible weapon mounts, but they were deadly. Each represented the combined technological might of several nations. The flagship, named Defiance, was commanded by Admiral June. The veteran naval officer had never imagined commanding a spaceship, but his strategic brilliance made him the perfect choice. Colonel Sunmi would join him as tactical advisor. "Are you sure about this?" General Taewon asked during their final briefing. "If this fails, we're sending our best leaders and technology into a trap. If we wait for them to return with their main fleet, Earth won't stand a chance," Sunmi replied. "We need to take this risk." The 5 ships launched under cover of darkness. They carried 2,000 crew members, the best pilots, engineers, and soldiers Earth had to offer. Among them was Dr. Huan, who would continue working with Sub-Commander Sung aboard the Defiance. The Tekri had established a forward base on Mars, transforming the Red Planet into a staging area for their next assault on Earth. They had detected human construction efforts but dismissed them as desperate measures. No pre-space civilization could possibly build effective warships in just 3 months. "The humans continue their primitive shipbuilding," reported Captain Jin Su to General Taejun. "Our intelligence suggests they are at least years away from achieving functional faster-than-light capability." The general nodded, satisfied. Their resistance was impressive but ultimately futile. "When our main fleet arrives, we will crush them completely." Neither officer noticed when their long-range sensors briefly detected 5 objects accelerating from Earth. The objects disappeared from tracking systems almost immediately, cloaked by technology that shouldn't have existed in human hands. The first warning the Tekri had of humanity's counterattack came when the Defiance decloaked just 3,000 kilometers from the Mars base. The other 4 ships appeared simultaneously at strategic positions around the planet. "Impossible," gasped Jinsu as alarms blared throughout the command center. General Taejun stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The human ships were moving with precision that suggested they understood Tekri defensive protocols. Before he could issue orders, the first salvo struck. Earth vessels fired weapons that perfectly matched the frequency gaps in Tekri's shields, knowledge they could only have gained from extensive study of captured technology. "Launch all fighters," the general commanded. "Target their engines first." The Tekri responded quickly, deploying their smaller craft to engage the Earth vessels. Their pilots were among the best in the Empire, with centuries of tradition and advanced training. They expected to overwhelm the primitive human ships easily. Instead, they flew into carefully planned killing zones. The Earth ships operated in perfect coordination, their defensive systems overlapping to create impenetrable fields of fire. Human pilots demonstrated combat techniques the Tekri had never encountered, maneuvers born from centuries of aerial warfare that translated surprisingly well to space combat. Aboard the Defiance, Colonel Sunmi monitored the battle from the tactical center. "Their fighters are retreating," she reported. "Phase 2 is ready." Admiral June gave the order, launched the boarding teams. From the Earth flagship, 12 specialized craft detached. These weren't fighters but transport vessels carrying the most elite soldiers humanity could field. Their target, the Tekri command center on the Martian surface. Major Hyun-woo led the primary assault team. His soldiers wore advanced combat suits that incorporated Tekri energy shielding with human-designed mobility systems. They had trained relentlessly for this mission, using virtual simulations based on information provided by Sub-Commander Sung. "Remember the plan," Hyun-woo told his team as their transport approached the Martian base. "Quick insertion, secure the command center, capture their leadership and data cores." The assault was precisely executed. The human boarding craft used the confusion of the space battle as cover, landing at predetermined points around the base perimeter. Tekri defenders, already shaken by the unexpected attack, found themselves facing enemies who knew exactly where to strike. Inside the command center, General Taejun received increasingly desperate reports. "Sir, they've breached the East Quadrant. The defense grid is failing. They're heading directly for the command center." The general turned to Captain Jin-soo, his expression grim. "How could they know our base layout in such detail?" Before Jin-soo could answer, the main doors to the command center exploded inward. Through the smoke strode human soldiers in armor that incorporated unmistakable Tekri design elements. Major Hyunwoo stepped forward, his weapon trained on the Tekri general. "General Taejun, in the name of the people of Earth, you are now our prisoner." The capture of the Mars base was completed within 4 hours. Human forces secured not only the Tekri leadership but also intact ships, weapons systems, and most valuable of all, the base's data cores. Dr. Huan arrived with the second wave, eager to examine the captured technology. What he found exceeded his wildest expectations. The data cores contained the complete Tekri star charts, he told Colonel Sunmi as they stood in the captured command center. "We now know the location of every world in their empire." Sunmi stared at the holographic display showing 17 star systems spread across the sector of the galaxy. "And their homeworld?" Dr. Huan pointed to a star near the center of the display. "Here. 3 weeks' journey at maximum speed with our current drives." For the first time since the crisis began, Sunmi felt a sense of genuine hope. Earth hadn't just survived, they had gained the initiative. The captured Tekri officers, including General Taejun himself, watched with stunned expressions as humans competently operated their advanced technology. "I don't understand," the general finally said to Sunmi. "How did your species advance so quickly?" She looked at him thoughtfully. "You made a fundamental error in your assessment of humanity, General. Throughout our history, nothing has driven innovation faster than conflict. When you threatened our existence, you united us and focused our creative energy like never before. But the technology gap was smaller than you thought," she finished for him. "Many of your advanced systems were already being theorized in our laboratories. We just needed the catalyst to turn theory into reality." As Earth forces secured the Mars base, modified Tekri communication systems transmitted the news of victory back to Earth. Celebrations erupted across the planet, but military leaders remained focused. This was just the first step. Admiral June approached Colonel Sunmi as she finished interrogating the Tekri general. "Earth Command has approved the next phase," he told her. "We're to prepare for deep space operations." Sunmi nodded. The original mission had been simply to eliminate the Mars base and buy Earth more time. But with their success and the captured intelligence, a more ambitious plan had formed. "We're going to take the fight directly to the Tekri Empire," she said. The admiral smiled grimly. "They thought they were hunting us. Now they'll learn what it means to be hunted." Aboard the remaining Tekri ships that had escaped the Mars battle, the news spread quickly. The supposedly primitive humans had not only repelled their invasion but had counterattacked with shocking effectiveness. As they fled toward Tekri space, they carried with them a warning that would soon reach every corner of the Empire. Humanity was coming. The Emperor of the Tekri stood before the massive viewing window in his palace throne room. His face showed no emotion as he watched the emergency defense fleet departing. Below him, the capital city stretched across the horizon, its towering structures gleaming in the light of the twin suns. For centuries, the Tekri had expanded outward, conquering world after world. Never had they faced a serious threat to their homeworld. Until now. "How long until the humans arrive?" the Emperor asked, not turning to face his advisors. Grand Admiral Song, newly appointed after the disgrace of the Mars defeat, stepped forward. "Our estimates suggest 2 weeks, Your Majesty. They have captured and modified 7 of our warships to supplement their own fleet." "And how did a pre-space civilization manage this in less than 6 months?" The Emperor's voice remained calm, but everyone present could feel the dangerous edge to his words. "We underestimated them," Song admitted. "Their technological development follows patterns we've never encountered. When threatened, they innovate at an exceptional rate. The Emperor finally turned, his tall figure casting a long shadow across the polished floor. "Tell me something useful, Admiral. Tell me how you plan to destroy these humans." "We have activated the Stellar Forge, Your Majesty." A murmur ran through the assembled advisors. The Stellar Forge was the Empire's most closely guarded weapon, a massive space station capable of harnessing the energy of a star to create a devastating beam that could crack planets. It had been used only twice in Techri history. "Very well," the Emperor nodded. "Position it in the outer system. When the human fleet arrives, we will end this irritation permanently." On the bridge of the Defiance, now significantly modified with Techri technology, Admiral June and Colonel Sunmi reviewed the latest intelligence. The captured Techri officer, Sub-Commander Sung, had become an increasingly valuable ally as he witnessed the difference between Imperial propaganda and human reality. "The Stellar Forge changes everything," Sung explained, pointing to schematics displayed on the main screen. "It's designed to destroy entire fleets or planets with a single blast." Admiral June frowned. "Can it be disabled?" "Not easily. Its defenses are formidable." Colonel Sunmi studied the diagram thoughtfully. "But it has a weakness, doesn't it?" "All weapons do." Sung hesitated, then nodded slowly. "The power core. During the charging sequence, there's a period of vulnerability before it fires. If you could somehow deliver a precise strike during that window." "How long is this window?" asked Dr. Huan, who had joined them for the briefing. "Approximately 30 seconds. The room fell silent. 30 seconds to target and destroy the most heavily defended Techri installation in existence. "We need a new approach," Sunmi finally said. "Admiral, I'd like to speak with you privately." When the others had left, Sunmi laid out a bold plan, one that didn't involve meeting the Techri fleet in direct combat. "We split our forces," she explained. "The main fleet approaches openly, drawing their attention, and the Stellar Forges fire. Meanwhile, a smaller team infiltrates their defenses using the captured Techri codes and targets the weapon's weakness." Admiral June considered this. "They'll be watching for deception." "Yes, but they still underestimate us. They believe we think like them, that we'll rely on brute force rather than subtlety." The plan took shape over the next several days as the Earth fleet approached Techri space. Major Hyun-woo was selected to lead the infiltration team, comprised of the most skilled operators from around Earth. They would use a captured Techri vessel, modified to mask its life signs while retaining its identification codes. As expected, the Techri detected the approaching Earth fleet. Their defenses mobilized, concentrating on the obvious threat. The Stellar Forge began its charging sequence, drawing enormous energy from the nearby sun. What the Techri didn't notice was a small ship approaching from an unexpected vector, using the system's gas giant as cover. Major Hyun-woo's team worked with practiced efficiency as they navigated through the outer defenses. Sub-Commander Sung had provided not only technical specifications but cultural insights that proved invaluable. The team understood Techri protocols well enough to respond convincingly when challenged. Supply vessel KT-329 requesting approach vector, Hyun-woo transmitted, his voice altered to sound Techri. KT-329, transmit clearance codes, came the response. The codes, taken from the captured Techri database, passed inspection. The infiltration ship continued toward the massive Stellar Forge, now glowing with gathered energy as it prepared to destroy the human fleet. Meanwhile, Admiral June's fleet engaged the Techri defense forces. The space between worlds became a chaos of energy beams, missile trails, and exploding ships. Human vessels moved with unexpected agility, using tactics that confused the Techri commanders. "They're not fighting according to any recognized doctrine," complained Admiral Song as he watched the battle unfold. "Their formations make no sense." What the Techri failed to understand was that humans were drawing on thousands of years of varied military traditions. Where the Techri had a single, refined approach to CE combat, humans had dozens, and they switched between them unpredictably. The Stellar Forge reached 90% charge. The Emperor himself observed from a safe distance, eager to watch the weapon obliterate the human threat. 5 minutes to firing position, reported the weapon's commander. Inside the massive station, alarm klaxons suddenly blared. "Security breach in Maintenance Sector 7, shouted an officer. The commander frowned. "Dispatch security teams." "It's probably nothing, focus on the firing sequence." But it wasn't nothing. Major Hyunwoo's team had boarded the Stellar Forge and was moving swiftly through its service corridors. Using specialized equipment developed by Dr. Hwan, they could temporarily disable security systems without triggering main alarms. 2 minutes to target, Hyunwoo reported through his secure communicator. Colonel Sunmi acknowledged from the Defiance. The timing would be extremely close. The main fleet was taking heavy losses as they maintained their position, drawing the Forge's attention. As the infiltration team reached the enormous chamber housing the Forge's power core, they encountered heavier resistance. Elite Tekri guards protected the heart of the weapon. "We need a distraction," Hyunwoo told his team. "Fire Team 2, create chaos." Half the team split off, triggering explosions in adjacent systems. The guards, trained to protect the core at all costs, were torn between standing their ground and investigating the new threat. "Stellar Forge at 98% charge," announced the weapons officer to the Emperor. "Target locked on human flagship." The Emperor smiled coldly. "Fire when ready." "Sir." Multiple breaches reported near the power core. The Emperor's smile vanished. "What? How?" He never finished his question. At that moment, Hyunwoo's team reached the power core. They quickly placed specialized charges at the exact points Sun had identified as vulnerable during the charging sequence. "Charges set," reported the demolition specialist. 30 seconds to detonation. "All teams, fall back to extraction point," ordered Hyunwoo. The Tekri realized too late what was happening. As security forces rushed toward the power core, the human team was already retreating along a different route. The charges detonated precisely as the Stellar Forge reached full power. The result was catastrophic. Instead of firing a controlled beam of stellar energy at the human fleet, the weapon's power turned inward. A blinding flash illuminated the entire system as the Stellar Forge tore itself apart, releasing the equivalent energy of a small supernova. The Emperor watched in stunned silence as his ultimate weapon disintegrated. The shockwave rippled outward, damaging nearby Tekri vessels while the human fleet, having anticipated the explosion, had already begun evasive maneuvers. Admiral Son's voice was shaking as he reported to the Emperor. "Your Majesty, the Stellar Forge is gone. And we've lost contact with the command staff." What the Admiral didn't know was that Major Hyunwoo's team had accomplished more than destroying the weapon. During the operation, a secondary team had infiltrated the Tekri Command Communications Center and uploaded a virus created by Earth's best programmers. This virus was now spreading through the Imperial network, encrypting military communication systems and exposing the Empire's secrets. Across 17 star systems, subjugated alien species began receiving unexpected messages, detailed plans of Tekri military installations, access codes to weapon storage facilities, and tactical weaknesses of Tekri forces. Colonel Sunmi watched as reports flooded in. The plan had worked even better than expected. The Tekri Empire, built on military superiority and fear, was facing simultaneous uprisings on a dozen worlds. "We've reached the turning point," Admiral Jun said quietly. Sunmi nodded. The Tekri never understood what they were dealing with. They saw our divisions as weakness, but they didn't realize that those differences gave us strength. We learned to adapt because we had to compete with each other. When threatened by an outside force, we united those diverse perspectives into something they couldn't predict. As Major Hyunwoo's team returned safely to their extraction vessel, the Tekri Imperial Palace received desperate calls for help from across the Empire. The Emperor stood alone in his throne room, watching as generations of conquest began to unravel. The humans hadn't just fought back. They had changed the rules of the game entirely. The Grand Hall of the Tekri Imperial Palace had never been used for surrender negotiations. Its soaring crystal ceiling and massive golden columns were designed to impress foreign dignitaries with the Empire's wealth and power, not to witness its defeat. Yet here sat Emperor Daeho, once ruler of 17 star systems, waiting for the human delegation to arrive. "They're late," he muttered to his remaining advisors. Grand Admiral Song glanced nervously at the Emperor. "Perhaps they wish to make us wait deliberately, Your Majesty." A show of dominance. The Emperor did not respond. In the 6 weeks since the destruction of the Stellar Forge, the Tekri Empire had collapsed with shocking speed. 12 subjugated worlds had declared independence. The Imperial fleet, once the most feared force in this sector of the galaxy, was scattered and demoralized. Even the Emperor's own generals had begun questioning whether continued resistance was possible. The massive doors swung open. A small group of humans entered, walking with calm confidence across the polished floor. Emperor Daeho recognized Colonel Sunmi from the intelligence reports. Beside her walked Admiral Jun, commander of the human fleet. Behind them came Major Hyunwoo, whose team had destroyed the Stellar Forge, and Dr. Hwan, now known throughout the galaxy for his revolutionary work combining human and alien technologies. Most surprising of all was the sight of Sub-Commander Sung walking freely with them, no longer a prisoner but apparently an advisor to the human leadership. "Traitor," hissed one of the Tekri counselors. Sung met his former emperor's gaze without flinching. "I chose survival over extinction, Your Majesty. After seeing how the humans treat those who cooperate, I believe I made the right choice." Colonel Sunmi stepped forward. "Emperor Daeho, we appreciate your willingness to meet. We hope to resolve this conflict with minimal further bloodshed." The Emperor studied her with cold eyes. "You have destroyed centuries of Tekri achievement. What more could you possibly want from us?" "Peace," she answered simply. "A stable galaxy where different species can coexist without domination." Admiral Jun unfolded a data tablet and placed it on the table between them. "These are our terms. They are non-negotiable." The Emperor reluctantly activated the tablet. As he read through the conditions, his expression shifted from anger to disbelief. "This can't be serious," he finally said. "You're not demanding our territory or resources?" "We don't want your empire," Sunmi explained. "We want it dismantled. Each world you conquered will regain its independence. The Tekri will retain only your homeworld and original colony. And our military will be reduced to defensive capabilities only. No more warships, no planet-killing weapons. You will be monitored for compliance for 100 years. The Emperor stared at her. "You could destroy us completely. Your ships surround our world. Why show mercy?" Sunmi exchanged glances with her colleagues before answering. "Because that's not who we are. Humanity has a long, painful history of conquest and warfare among ourselves. We've learned that cycle of violence only creates more enemies. Consider this," added Dr. Hwan. "If we destroyed the Tekri now, another species might eventually do the same to us. We're trying to create a different path forward." For a long moment, the Great Hall was silent. The Emperor looked at each human face, searching for deception or hidden cruelty. He found none. "Very well," he finally said. "We accept your terms." As the formal surrender was recorded, Major Hyunwoo stepped aside to speak with Sung. "How do you think they'll adapt?" he asked, nodding toward the Emperor and his court. Sung considered this. "It won't be easy. The Empire has been expanding for so long, many Tekri can't imagine any other way of life. But perhaps that's the point, we need to learn to imagine alternatives." Outside the palace, the citizens of the Tekri capital watched as news of the surrender spread across public screens. Unlike conquered peoples of the past, they faced no occupation, no mass arrests, no public humiliations. The humans had made it clear they had no interest in replacing one empire with another. 3 days later, Colonel Sunmi stood on the observation deck of the Defiance, watching as the first representatives from formerly subjugated worlds arrived for the galaxy's first true diplomatic summit. Among them were species that had been enemies for generations, united only by their common experience of Tekri oppression. "Do you think this will work?" Admiral Jun asked, joining her at the viewport. "It has to," she replied. "Otherwise, we just replace one conflict with dozens of smaller ones." The summit began with tension and suspicion. Many species were meeting as equals for the first time, and old grudges died hard. The human delegation found itself in the unexpected role of mediator. "It's ironic," Dr. Huan commented to Sunmi after a particularly difficult negotiation session. "We were barely united ourselves when the Tekri arrived. Now we're trying to help 20 different species find common ground. Maybe that's why we're good at it," she suggested. "We understand how hard unity can be." As the days passed, a framework for a new galactic council began to take shape. Each world would maintain its sovereignty while participating in mutual defense and trade agreements. Even the Tekri were invited to join, though with limited voting rights until their probationary period ended. Emperor Deho, now reduced to planetary governor, requested a private meeting with Colonel Sunmi before the humans departed. "There's something I don't understand," he said when they were alone. "Our intelligence assessed Earth thoroughly before we made contact. We saw your wars, your divisions, your environmental problems. By all logic, you should have been an easy conquest." Sunmi smiled slightly. "You saw our struggles but missed what they taught us. Humans have been testing ourselves against each other for thousands of years. We've made terrible mistakes and learned from them. When you threatened us, we didn't have to invent warfare or adaptation or cooperation, we just had to apply those skills to a new enemy. A costly lesson for the Tekri Empire," the former emperor observed. "But one that might ultimately benefit your people," she replied. The subjugation of others was making the Tekri stagnant. "Now you'll have to innovate again, find your place in a galaxy of equals." 1 month later, the Earth fleet prepared to return home. They left behind a transformed sector of space. The newly formed Galactic Council had established headquarters on a neutral world, with representatives from 22 species working together to build a stable peace. Subcommander Sun, now serving as the Tekri representative to the Council, came to bid farewell to the humans who had changed everything. "What will you tell your people when you return?" he asked Major Hyunwoo as they walked together one last time. "The truth," Hyunwoo replied. "That the galaxy is bigger and more complex than we imagined, but also filled with possibilities for cooperation instead of conquest." Sun nodded thoughtfully. "The Tekri believed strength came from domination. You showed us there are other forms of strength." As the Defiance broke orbit for the journey home, Colonel Sunmi recorded her final report. Around her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, many of them already wondering what new challenges awaited Earth as it took its place among the stars. "The Tekri dared to challenge humanity," she dictated, "believing our division was weakness and our adaptability was chaos. They learned too late that these qualities were actually our greatest strengths. When threatened, humans don't just fight back, we evolve. We transform. We become something new." She paused, watching the stars streak by as the ship accelerated toward Earth. "Perhaps the greatest victory isn't that we defeated an empire, but that we found a better way forward. The Tekri thought they were teaching us our place in the galaxy. Instead, we taught them and ourselves that the old patterns of conquest and submission can be broken. That's the legacy we bring home, not just victory, but vision." Admiral June joined her at the viewport. "Do you think we've seen the last conflict out here?" "No," she answered honestly. "But next time, Earth won't face it alone. And next time, we'll be even better prepared." As the Defiance and its sister ships approached the solar system, Earth received its heroes with celebration and relief. But beneath the joy was a new understanding. Humanity had faced its first great test among the stars and emerged not just victorious, but transformed. The species that had spent millennia fighting itself had found a greater purpose, helping to build a galaxy where different worlds could learn from each other rather than conquer each other. The Tekri had challenged humanity and paid the price. But in the end, both species had gained something more valuable than an empire. They had glimpsed a better future.